Richard listens on sports.
Woo-hoo.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Welcome back. And today is a special day. Today is not like every other day. I could launch into green eggs and ham, but I will not. Something like that. Anyway, we always promise you, our listeners of Richard Listens, that we will bring back previous guests who have special talents, gifts they want to share with you. And today is one of those days. We have here in studio Sophie Yasmin, who wowed us just a few short months ago with her hypnotic and beautiful violin playing. And she is going to introduce Colourstrings, a technique of teaching violin that is very, we won't say not at all, but seldomly taught in North America. So before I introduce her directly, Caitlin.
Yes, let's have Sophie teach us not only a technique that can be used with instruments, but I think this technique can be applied to many other different kind of competitive things, right? Sophie, tell us more. Tell us more.
Thank you for having me back. Thank you. I think so. Thank you. Thank you for having me back. I think so. I think it's a method which just the uniqueness of it and the different techniques that are involved can be put in with any kind of athletic. And keep going. Okay, so anyway, the method is called Colourstrings, and so it's not taught in the US very much at all. It's a European method in Finland, based in Finland, but it's created by two Hungarian brothers. So it's based around the Kodaly method, which is a music method of singing, musicianship, and rhythm. And so you put that together with this violin method, and it's just the ultimate violin teaching method. Okay, so it takes away all of the stresses of learning the violin from the very beginning. So when you first start learning the violin, in the traditional methods, you'd just be put there with your teacher, and you'd be given your bow and your violin, and you just sort of start having to play, okay? But with this method, what you actually see in the music are these thin lines which are coloured. And so you have four colours that go with the four different strings. So you have the yellow line for the birdie string. They all have a character as well, which makes it very child-friendly and totally unique. There's no other methods that do that. So the birdie string, the mummy string, which is blue, which would be the next string along, the daddy string, which is red, and then the green string, which is the bear string. So each character fits the kind of string that you're hearing and the pitch of the sound. So the highest string is the birdie string, and the lowest string is the bear string. So then the very first thing that you learn in your first lesson is actually plucking with your left hand, which is seen as a very advanced technique usually. You probably wouldn't learn that until you're at least, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old. So that's the very first thing you start learning, and that's to get the finger strength starting from the very, very first lesson. And only after the first lesson, or maybe at the end of the first lesson, if the teacher thinks that it's okay, they will actually guide your bow. And so you're not just left to your own devices. They're guiding your bow, and they're standing there, and then so you always end up making a nice sound. And then after a few lessons, when that's comfortable and you're playing different rhythms and you're using all your different fingers, the very first note that you'll play isn't pressing down a string, which can be a very tension sort of inducing movement. It's actually just touching certain special parts of the instrument, which will then give you this, what they call magic notes in the method. And it sounds like magic to children. This kind of whistle sound. And so the very first sounds that the student would hear are these sort of magical, very nice sounding notes, as opposed to perhaps this kind of sound that probably most parents are used to hearing when their children first start learning a string instrument. So this method just takes away all of the sort of mental stress for the student in not hearing what they expect to hear when the teacher plays. So that when the teacher plays, it's hopefully a nice sound, and then the student can then replicate that by starting off by always having these nice sounds and playing songs that very unique songs. It's all based around folk songs in this method, and you end up playing the melodies of these folk songs by using these magic notes and plucking the strings. So you're already doing so much more than a normal beginner student would be doing in the traditional methods. So that's basically the overview of the very beginning of this method, and then it's just curated like a whole program from book A to book F, I think now, and there's supplementary material, and it's just involves a lot of singing as well, and so the child gets a very overall foundation, very strong foundation for playing an instrument like the violin, and it's very much focused on the body as well, and keeping the movements very, very fluid and soft in order to make this nice sound.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much for demonstrating and sharing that with us.
You're welcome. No, it's my pleasure. It needs to be shared, I think. In America, it doesn't really exist very much, so I hope that I can start bringing it to children here.
Now, if anyone had any questions or wanted to reach out to you, can you let them know how they can contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is my website, which is www.sophieyasmin.com, and Instagram, the handle is at Sophie_Yasmin. And yeah, I'd be sure to respond to any questions. I also have a YouTube channel,
City String
Yasmin.
Is that connected to City String Ensemble, or?
Well, no, that's really for events. But all of us in the group, we do a lot of teaching. But in terms of my colleagues in LA, they wouldn't know about this method. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping to share it with as many people as possible.
It's really beautiful. Every time I hear you play or speak, it's like I just remember the violin being this complicated and tense, even just the idea, right? And I would mess up and make this sound and parents would make a frowny face, or people would say, "Oh, what's that noise?" And then you'd be frightened to play and put it away. So the idea that there's imagery with friendly characters, that people are like, "Oh, cool, I'm making a bear sound." And
it's so child friendly. It's so easy to teach. The moment you, even if students haven't been learning with this before, the moment you bring one of these books in and you start even just teaching some of the concepts, they end up loving playing. They want to practice. They improve so quickly. So it's really important. That's why I'm so passionate about it.
Well, thank you so much, Sophie. We want to thank you so much for coming back and demonstrating this on the show. Any closing thoughts, Richard?
You're never too young to pick up a sport or an instrument. And apparently, it doesn't have to start with the guitar. It can be the violin. And Sophie is an amazing teacher and gifted musician. So if you can find her, if you can hear her performance, or if you can get a lesson, I just might have to do one myself.
You should.
All right. Well, until
Thank you,
next
everybody.
time. Yes.
We appreciate you being here and listening with us. Please reach out. Let us know more of what you want to hear. And thank you for supporting the Richard Listen Show.